Good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition radio and podcast streaming live on kuhsdenver.com, where we were supposed to have a guest and was not. There was an emergency, which is always something that we want to pray for, when there are family emergencies. So that means that we're going to continue our discussion on the microbiome. And what I wanted to talk about was specifically for kids, because I think that, hold on, I don't know what that is. All right, we don't talk enough, I don't think, well, it's not that we don't talk enough, but I don't talk enough about it. I don't have children, although I'm surrounded by them because I have lots of friends and family with children. But, there are so many things that we can do to set up our kids and grandkids and families up for success, starting when they're young. And so we want to talk a little bit about that today. Let's dig into some details about how we can support the kiddos' microbiomes in our lives, and how we can keep them healthy and thriving, because it's the early start that can lead to all of the successes or the lack thereof throughout the rest of their life. So, but of course, first we start the show with gratitude. Gratitude can change the world, and I truly believe that, and I think that living in a place of gratitude as much as possible, right? We can have our moments where we kind of get down on ourselves, but that's life, or get down on the environment, what's going on in our world, what's going on politically, right? There's lots of crazy things happening, and that is nothing new. There's always been crazy things happening, but I think that we can maybe take it a little bit to heart when there's still so many things we have to be grateful for. So I am grateful today for the chance to go see my dad. I got to go hang out with him over the weekend. He is far away from me, so I don't get to see him as much as I would like to, but getting to spend some time with him, hang out with him, his little dog, believe it or not, we went and did a little antiquing and had some fun. And so it was good to be able to, it was really just kind of super chill. He's in the middle of nowhere, so not a lot going on, which is exactly what I think we both needed. So I'm really grateful for the time to get to spend with him. So moving on, the reason I decided to talk about the kids, I think that if you've listened to me over the last few weeks, I went to a conference that was all about the microbiome. And there was one of the presenters is a woman, Dr. I think I'm saying it right. It's Elisa Song. She's a pediatrician. She wrote a book, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids. Really great book. I don't often I don't often read books that are specific to kids, because I don't see a lot of kids myself. I see a few, and then and I don't have kids either. And there's so many things that I already am pretty confident in when we're looking at what's in our food and what's in our environment and what are the microbiome disruptors. But kids are tough, right? Kids are surrounded, they don't understand that some of these things can set them up for a life of health or dis-ease. They just want what they want. They want what their friends have, they can, lots of times can kind of end up with the wrong foods and the wrong things, end up in a little bit of a spiral, right? If we have picky kids, if we have kids who throw the temper tantrums and they're anxious and sensory disorders and these things that can, that food and toxins can perpetuate. So what can we do to mitigate some of these things, but then also allow for them to really thrive and then be involved in the creation of their future? When I say that, I'm talking about involved in reading labels, involved in helping to cook, involved in what they want to eat, and how you as parents, how to educate them early, right? And I think that that's kind of the key. And I know it's not easy, and so I don't ever want to come off like I know a lot about kids, because I don't have them. But a book like this, I think, is really important. So if you are a parent, this is a great book to get. Healthy Kids, Happy Kids. It's not just about microbiome disruption. It's about building the microbiome. But what we won't talk about today, but probably will at another time, is the things that you can have in your your toolbox, that can support your kiddos if they're sick, right? She gives information. I was listening to this part on my way into the studio this morning, but she talks about fevers. We have this, and I'm a little off topic, but maybe this is just, I think it's important to talk about. We're coming up on, this, flu season and all of this stuff. What can we do to support our kids the best we can during, these times when they're, in school and around all of these other kids, and they get sick and they bring home the sickness, and what is it that's going to be best for them? And so when we're looking at a fever, do we really need to give them fever reducers, right? The NSAIDs, typically, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Is that something that we really need to do? Do we need to break a fever? No. So take this to heart, because one of the things that she was talking about, and that I try to do in my own home for us adults, my husband and myself, is just ride out the fever. The fever is there for a reason. The fever is there to slow you down. The fever is there to attack the bacteria. This is an immune response. It is very normal, very natural, and if you squash that fever, the body and the immune system aren't allowed to do their job. And so we end up, it takes us longer to get through an illness, and then we lose resiliency because the immune system wasn't able to do its job. So, one of the things that I know a lot of people are really afraid of are high fevers. And these are things that I did not know. So it was really great to have a resource like this book to help to prepare for when these things happen with your family, right? But, one of the things that I think that we hear that is a myth is that high fever can cause brain damage. And I think what she said is anything under, I think it was 107.8 or 6 or something like that, is not, it's a big deal, right? It stinks, but it's not going to cause brain damage. And so I'm not going to go too much into that, because these are kind of new to me, but I think it's important to talk about, and we'll talk about it. But more than anything, again, if you're a parent, this is a great book to get. It gives you a lot of tools on how to switch out foods for the unhealthy to the better, to the best, which of course is going to typically be home cooked, and then the supplements and the homeopathics and all of these different things that can really help guide you in when you actually need to see a doctor, when you might need to break a fever, when you might need to use antibiotics, which is almost never. But there are times when these things are necessary. So having this in your back pocket, so it's just a great way to have some comfort, right? And not feel like you always have to go to the doctor and always have to be fearful of your kiddo getting sick. It's life, right? And it helps to build their immune system when they get sick. And if we give antibiotics, which is going to be a massive microbiome disruptor, all that's going to do is squash their immune system, and it's going to squash it. It can squash it for 2 to 4 years. It can take a really long time for us to be able to build up a robust immune system or robust microbiome again. So think about these things. Antibiotics are so overused and overprescribed. Let's think about doing the things that we don't, that are more supportive, as opposed to wiping it out, right? So So some of these things that we're going to talk about, really a lot of it's going to be food and environment that I wanted to hit on today. And you know, it's stuff that we need to know, because we need to make the shifts. We need to make the shifts in our home. We need to make the shifts when we're sending our foods to school. We need to make the shifts in the schools. And again, this is not my world, right? But the food system in the schools and the foods that's being fed to our kids, it's disgusting. It's terrible. And we expect our kids to not to sit still when we're feeding them these colors and these dyes and these preservatives that increase anxiety and increase the lack of focus. All of these things, it's not fair to them. They don't know how to control themselves at this point. And if we're not feeding them well, if they're nutrient deficient, if they're getting the colorings that increase ADD, ADHD, these are the things that are gonna, then they get in trouble, and then they go and they're put on meds, and it's just, talk about a downward spiral from the time they're, little tiny munchkins. So having a toolbox is a great way to get started, and this book is a great toolbox. So yeah, I think one of the interesting points here is childhood illness is becoming normalized. This is not normal, right? So the allergies, the ADHD, eczema, chronic infections, these are not normal. One of the things that she talked about in the book was ear infections. How many times I've had clients and patients tell me about the amazing amount of antibiotics because they had chronic ear infections. They're gonna go away. And I didn't know this either, right? This is in the book, but they're gonna go away. It's gonna take a few days, they're gonna go away. What can you do? You can give their specific homeopathics. I think she was talking about belladonna that can help with pain for something like this, like within 20 or 30 minutes, right? So if we have these things available to us, and we don't have to give antibiotics, and we don't have to squash fever, we just let the kiddos move through it, we're gonna build resiliency, we're gonna build an immune system, a robust immune system, right? And so the microbiome is the center of it all, right? So it is 70% of our immune system. And so when the kids are exposed to things that are chipping away at their microbiome or chipping away at their immune system, then it's just going to create problems early and even more problems later on, right? So things to think about. So we've got we've talked a lot about toxins in the past, but we didn't get a lot of detail, right? We talked about the pesticides and the herbicides, which is pretty typical. There are metals, there are mycotoxins, but I wanted to dig into some of these things that are in everyday foods that are just supposed to be okay, and they're not. And so we've got these artificial dyes, red 40, yellow 5, blue 1. I mean, so scary. But they're in everything, right? We want to give we know today, most of us know that a microbiome is important. So like, here's your snack, here's your healthy yogurt. But we've got these dyes and these colorings and the amount of bacteria in these yogurts, and then the high sugar content. And then it's a processed food. There are the gelatins and the gums and the junk that are in these yogurts. They're not doing the kids any good. So really think about that. So there, in Europe, they require warning labels where we don't over here. I'm so prayerful that is working. We're working on that change right now with people like RFK, working on, helping to manage the amount of toxins that are in our food and that are affecting our kids and us, right? And so the studies show that these are linked to hyperactivity and behavioral issues, right? We feed these to our kids. We expect them to be still in school. They're not still in school. What happens? We take them to the doctor. My kid can't concentrate. Okay, let's go put them on these drugs that are I don't know if they're not narcotics, but they're it's like crack. It's like cocaine, right? It's like speed. And interestingly, it helps them to focus, but it can push hives, it can push asthma, they can push increased oxidative stress in the gut. These are not good things, and so when we're looking at the, like the Fruit Loops, and I don't even know what people feed their kids today, or, or it's not that, they don't know the cereals that are out today, but I'm sure Fruit Loops is still around, right? But these things are just horrible. But you have these colorings not only in foods, you've got them in pharmaceuticals, right? You've got them in over-the-counter medicines. So it's just awful stuff. So we want to look for things like dye-free brands. So if you're going to feed your kids cereal, you want it to be a whole food. You got to look at the ingredients and know what's in the ingredients. So staying away from these dyes and these colorings and the preservatives, and going for something that is the better option without the coloring. Or if it has coloring, it's a natural coloring, right? They use turmeric to color things. They use beet to color things. So think about stuff like that. Let's see, I know we've talked a lot about glyphosate. So glyphosate is Roundup. I am fascinated by the people who still use Roundup, because we know now that it is a carcinogen. We know that it's toxic, and we're still using it, and it's still on the shelves at Home Depot, right? I was looking outside the other day at my neighbor, who always goes and sits in his grass with his dog. It's really cute, but twice now he's sprayed his yard. It's just, these are the things. Oh my goodness, I was at the gym yesterday, and we were outside working out, and so you're breathing really heavy, and I was like, what is this smell? And one of the coaches was like, yeah, they just sprayed out here. Nobody wants that, and this is up to the building. It's not the gym, it's the building owners. But for the love of Pete, that's the stuff that's not necessary. There's weeds everywhere. Bugs are life. We don't even hardly have any bugs here in Colorado. And so it was a horrible smell. And so it just ate at me that I'm sitting there breathing in so heavily because I'm working my tail off, and I'm breathing in these toxins. So one of the reasons why taking binders, I take binders on a regular basis, because we're always inundated by these things. So we can only control what we can control, right? And there's a lot of things that we can control, which is awesome, but there are some things that we can't. I can't control that I'm going to go to the gym and some person who seems to be clueless about toxins goes and sprays sprays the area that we're going to be working out in. But I can go home, I can keep my own environment clean, I can take binders, I can support my microbiome. We have specific microbes that help us to detoxify, that help us to get rid of metals, that help us to get rid of all of these things. So, we build and we bind, and then we just try to avoid what we can avoid, and it's just not everything's avoidable. But things, keep that stuff in mind. Let's see. So glyphosate. Oh, of course, the other thing, if we're eating it, right? So we have glyphosate on our food. If it's not organic, and think about this too, even if which is great, if you go to EWG, you go to the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, that's awesome. It's really helpful in helping you to know what fruits and vegetables are the cleanest, but they're probably still full if they're not organic, they're going to have pesticides and herbicides on them. And the thing is, we can't rinse them. It goes up into the soil and into every cell of that piece of produce, and it's just in it. It's just part of it. So yes, we can decrease the toxicity, but we can't eliminate it. And I think even if it's organic, there's a certain amount that's it's a small amount, but there's a certain amount that is allowed, because today it's just ubiquitous. I don't know if we can go anywhere where it's covered in pesticides and herbicides. It's really awful. But knowing that if you're killing the bugs in the ground, right, you're actually killing the microbes in the ground as well. You eat it, you're killing the microbes in your gut. So this doesn't help to create a healthy microbiome. So again, it's not totally avoidable, but that's why we do the things. We eat good, healthy prebiotics. We eat our fruits and vegetables that are full of fiber. We eat the polyphenols. We take probiotics if necessary. We do GI testing to understand what our microbiome looks like in the first place so we know how to support it, right? These are the things that can be really beneficial in helping us to build and to continue that robust microbiome. So when we do have insults, say, going to my dad's, we don't have a lot of organic food over there, right? So I'm going to eat what I'm going to eat and do the best that I can, and I'm going to work my tail off to make sure my gut is in a good spot. And so killing all of the bacteria with these things, we're messing with the gut lining. We already know that these pesticides and herbicides, they impact the gut lining integrity. So we've talked about leaky gut 100 times or more, right? And so it has been proven that these things will open up gut, it will increase zonulin. So zonulin's the protein that opens up the cell walls, opens up the cells from each other, and creates a leaky gut situation. Leaky gut is a normal, it's a normal process, but it's not supposed to stay that way, right? So there are times of starvation, times of women who are pregnant. There is a time where there's a leaky gut, but it's this chronic leaky gut that can be, that's the problem, right? Because we have molds and bacteria and yeast and toxins that get into the bloodstream, and the body's like, that's not supposed to be there. So alarm signals all go off, and the body's angry and mad and becomes super inflamed. So we want to make sure that the lining of our gut stays intact. Things that we can do to help to do that. Zinc carnosine is amazing for that. A lot of good data with zinc carnosine. Glutamine, if it's tolerated, most people can tolerate it, but there are times when glutamine is not tolerated, specifically certain cancers, certain genetic polymorphisms can can show that can make glutamine not the best idea. So we want to just be careful of some of those things, but there can be these things can also interfere with our detox pathways. So interestingly, there are some people that don't do well with things like nightshades, and so nightshades have natural pesticides in them, so they can proliferate, right? So their seeds can go and they can create more offspring, right? So some people with these polymorphisms, I think that they probably don't always do well. So they're pesticides, they're polymorphisms that don't allow for the proper detoxification of pesticides and herbicides. And so it could be that people that don't do well with nightshades have that polymorphism. Don't really know that. I just think it's kind of this cool little clinical pearl that is an interesting thing to think about. So if that's you, could be something to think about. And so methylation is a detox pathway. It's also it is a genetic expression. It's like my words today, still working on my brain, right? Always got to work on brain function. But it controls essentially to a degree genetic expression. And so methylation, if we are over methylated or under methylated, can be problematic. Especially under methylation, which means that genetic expression is not at its optimal. And so these things the pesticides and herbicides can interfere with methylation, and it is super important for brain development, right? Kids, everything's developing, but specifically their brain function. And so if we want to make sure that methylation is optimal. Things to do that they're your methylated B vitamins. It's your magnesium and a few other nutrients that are supportive of methylation to make sure that all of the processes are working properly, right? So if we're looking at things like goldfish crackers, right? It's sort of one of the things that are in my notes here. You've got the colorings of the goldfish. Then on top of that, it's the gluten and the dairy and things. All of these things, bypass the blood-brain barrier, impacting brain function potentially causing autoimmune disease. So what can you do with these snacks? There are lots of other versions of these snacks that are a lot better options. Probably none of them are ideal, but there are much better options at the stores. So the thing too that that is often, I think, missed is these emulsifiers. Emulsifiers, to my understanding, are one of the most disruptive toxins to the microbiome. And so we've got things like polysorbate 80, which is kind of in everything. BHT, which has been shown to be a carcinogen. So you've got BHA, BHT. We used to see these things in everything. I mean, you'll still see it, which is fascinating to me that you still see this. I've seen it in pizza. It used to be, I think they took it out, or last I saw they took it out, but they would put BHA and BHT in the science diet dog food. So we talked about dogs last week and feeding real food to our dogs. I mean, it blows my mind, for one, that Science Diet comes out, saying that they are, a healthy option for our dogs, but then they, had in there things like BHA and BHT. Now they just got other preservatives. It's still a terrible food. But the fact is that, we're seeing these things when we can't look at ingredients, so we have our kids in schools, and it's not always possible to look at the ingredients, for what the kids are being fed. That's the stuff that's really scary, because if you don't know what's in it, if you don't have a label to read it, you don't know what they're getting. So, again, we do the best that we can, but if you're able to send your food to the school, I remember when I was in high school that's what I wanted. I wanted to eat what everybody else was eating. I wanted the nachos. I wanted the pizza, and that's what I ate. It's awful. It's it's just terrible. But these things, so we've got the carrageenan. Carrageenan is a type of seaweed. So I'm not truly sure what it is about carrageenan that's so bad, although it is. It can be, it can create, GI distress. It is a potential carcinogen, although I don't know that that's been proven yet, but the possibility's there. And so I avoid anything that's got carrageenan in it. It's in ice creams. It's in all kinds of stuff. So it's not something that we want to take in. And maybe it's just the processing of it that makes it so bad. I'm not really sure, but these things are super disruptive. And so they're always in things like creamy salad dressings, non-dairy milks, processed meats, cereals, energy bars, natural brands. I hate that, natural brands. Natural doesn't mean anything, unfortunately. So don't let the front of the box, don't let that label fool you because you got to look at the back. You got to look at the whole thing, right? They do, the marketing works. Marketing works really, really well, especially with kiddos when there are lots of bright colors. We have to go back. We've got to look at the ingredients and know how to read the labels. And if it's got 50 ingredients in it, you probably want to stay away from it. If it's got 2, maybe it's okay, but you still got to know. But look for these things that are potentially are likely problematic. And so these things disrupt the gut barrier. They promote inflammation. They feed pathogenic bacteria over the beneficial strains. So if we're thinking about kiddos with eczema and tummy aches and recurrent strep infections, having a microbiome that's not as robust as it should be, having more pathogenic or opportunistic bacteria than commensal or beneficial bacteria, these are the things that are going to push these chronic infections that happen, right? We can have kiddos, we can have us as adults have these chronic fungal infections, chronic yeast infections. The coating on the tongue is a yeast, and so these things are indicative of significant dysbiotic guts. So let's keep that in mind and look at the ingredients. So the refined sugars, when we look at white sugar, it's just what we're used to is white sugar. It's processed. It's usually made from sugar beets, which are genetically modified. So if you're looking at a white refined sugar, it's probably genetically modified. If you're looking at a label and it just says sugar, it's probably genetically modified. If it says cane sugar, or even better, organic cane sugar, then it shouldn't be genetically modified. So those are important things. If it's genetically modified, the body's like, I don't know what this is. So it's super sweet. and the body then wants more sweet, and the body doesn't recognize it, so it just is that downward spiral of toxicity. And so going back to the overly crazy sweet stuff, right? We've got the high fructose corn syrup. Most of us know by now that this is a huge problem, but again, it's in everything. We always have to read the labels. I always read the labels, 99% of the time, and I've been burned in that 1% of the time where I didn't read the label. It has happened. So and over time, you're gonna know. You're gonna know what's good and what's not good until something new comes out, and then you got to read the label again. But you'll start to figure out the things that are less toxic, least toxic, right? So these types of sugars, though, they're going to feed candida, which is a yeast. It is natural to the body, but it's an opportunistic yeast. And so if our commensals which are our beneficial bacteria, if they are dysbiotic, too low, right, then it gives the opportunistics the ability to grow out of control and create lots and lots of problem, right? Can it be as little as joint pain? It can be brain fog. It can be craving sweets. Lots of us crave sweets. So there are multiple reasons for that. There are, genetic polymorphisms. I'm one of those. I have to control my sweets. And I do much better at it now because I am much more sensitive to the sweet taste, which we can do. Another thing, we've got kids who always want the sweet. I mean, sweet's delicious. It's super fun. But we're getting, we used to get I think half a teaspoon of sweet, and now it's, I don't remember what the number is, 10, 20 teaspoons of sweet or something like that a day of sugar. It's crazy. And so we become desensitized to the sweet on our tongue. So it can take about a month, but we can resensitize to the sweetness. And so that's thankfully where I am at this point. I've not always been that way, but I'm pretty sensitive now to what's sweet. And that's a great place to be because, again, sweet's delicious, but when it's too sweet, it's way too much. So, these sugars, besides, perpetuating candida and other harmful microbes, they're going to perpetuate inflammation. They're going to push inflammation. They're going to cause blood sugar roller coasters, crashes, meltdowns, mood swings, right? And so what often happens, and this comes from Dr. Song's book, but if you have a kiddo who's hungry and cranky and you give them what you think is a healthy fruit snack, and then they're calm and they're normal, well, then their blood sugar goes up and then it goes down, the insulin takes it out too fast, and you've got these up and down blood sugar swings, and then the kid's crazy and cranky again, and then you give them another sugary snack, even if it's a fruit, right? So we got to think about what we're pairing our foods with our kids. Do we pair it with some protein? Do we pair it with a little bit of fat? That can help with, balance out that blood sugar. But really think about what it is that you're deciding to give your kid as a snack to calm them down. We want to have a nice level blood sugar. So things that you can swap. Raw honey is amazing. Yeah, it's super sugary, but a little bit goes a long way. It's high in enzymes, high in healthy microbes. If you heat it, right, you stick it in hot tea or something, you're more likely to kill those microbes. So think about what you're doing with the honey. But raw honey is great. So a little maple syrup, some dates, all of those super sugary, but have some benefit to them. So much better options than your regular white sugars. Even coconut sugar is going to be better than your regular white sugar. Seed oils. Seed oils kill me. There are still people who promote canola oil as a healthy, heart-healthy oil. Super inflammatory. Any seed oil, whether it's safflower, sunflower, canola, cottonseed, vegetable oils, all of these are highly processed, full of all kinds of toxins and solvents to make them shelf stable, and they are toxic. So what do you want to switch that with, right? So, and it's not even just a little bit, just don't do it. If this is one of those things, what I try to do when I'm talking to people, I hate wasting money. If somebody has something that's not great, but it's okay, I'm like, okay, finish it off, it's fine. But there's some things that we just don't want to finish off. We just want to get rid of it. We want to throw it away. We want it not to be anywhere on our shelf. And these seed oils are just that. If you're using them at all, if you have them in your home, throw them away. There's no reason to use them at all. So things you want to cook with: avocado oil, coconut oil, ghee. Don't want to cook with olive oil. Use olive oil for drizzling and use as much as you want. It's great. It's got amazing polyphenols in it. It supports the endocannabinoid system, which is super cool. So olive oil is a really great option, but cooking with it's a bad idea. Let's see what else we have here. This is an interesting one. So we talked a little bit earlier about medications. We talked about antibiotics and how disruptive they can be to the microbiome. You can consider pesticides and herbicides antibiotics, right? But there's something that recently came out, and what we're learning more about Tylenol. Tylenol, and this is something that I've known for a really, really long time, but I didn't know the damaging effects to this level. Tylenol is given to us in the hospitals. Tylenol is given to us as kids. That's the thing, for whatever reason, I don't even know why, but for whatever reason, that's the go-to in the hospitals and with the doctors for, managing fevers, right, which we don't want to do, remember. But it is super hepatotoxic, right? So it's really hard on the liver. And so what it does is it decreases glutathione. We need glutathione when we're sick. We need glutathione for antioxidant capacity. We need it. It is our master antioxidant. It recycles other antioxidants. It helps us to detoxify when we're sick, when we have exposures to the environment, right? We need to have that glutathione. And so Tylenol reduces glutathione. Big deal, really big deal. So what recently came out is that, potentially part of this uprising in autism is that when a kiddo is vaccinated, they're given Tylenol. And so you have this big immune response with the lack of protective antioxidant like glutathione, and it can push, for some people, they're thinking that it can push autism. I think, lots of things play a role in something like this. Lots of things, just like anything else, right? So our microbiome plays a role, our genetic makeup, our epigenetic makeup plays a role, our environmental exposures play a role. All of these things can play a role, but you have just the wrong situation and it can push a really terrible situation. So we want to think about when and why we're using Tylenol, and maybe it's just not worth it. That would be my thought. I think that the better option, if something has to be used, is going to be something like ibuprofen. I'm not going to say this because I can't remember never mind. I had a thought in my head, but if I can't remember exactly what it is, then I'm not going to say it. But we'll talk about that another time. It was about another anti-inflammatory. If I can remember, doesn't matter. Okay, sorry, carry on. So let's see. So the overuse of the acetaminophen, which is the Tylenol, and the antibiotics. So I already said that. Let's see. Viral infections, yeah. So antibiotics, that's the thing too. Doctors, or maybe it's our expectation, I don't know, that we go in and we grab antibiotics even no matter what. And antibiotics don't work for viruses. And a lot of kids' issues are viral. They're not bacterial. Now you can have both. You can have a viral infection that turns bacterial because it's sort of I think that there's an immune response and the bacteria can kind of come in and take over. And so there's a situation like that. But most of these kids' issues are viral and they're just going to resolve. And so these ear infections, many of them, I said this a little while ago, but they resolve on their own. And so I think they said, in 2 or 3 days, usually these ear infections will resolve on their own. So you want to work with someone who is aware of these things and will work with you on when is not necessary to do the antibiotics, to do the NSAIDs and that kind of thing. Things that are, I think, I'm thinking about the toxins that we use for our hand soaps and things like that. Washing our hands is smart. Washing our hands is a good thing. But we have this overabundance of these antibacterial soaps and antibacterial lotions and antibacterial everything. Everything is absorbed through our skin. So if you are constantly washing your hands with antibacterial soap, what are you doing to your gut microbiome, to your oral microbiome, to your vaginal microbiome, right? Everything about us has a microbiome. And so how are we disrupting that by using these antibacterial products all the time? It's a pretty big deal. So we just need soap. Just wash your hands with soap for a little while, right? Like 30 seconds, or say the ABCDs or whatever it is, right? Staying away from the antimicrobial everything is smart. I stay away from it always. Things that can be also problematic, EMFs. We've talked about EMFs some. Not everybody is, there are genetic SNPs that can predispose us to really having an issue with EMFs. Not everybody does. I'm not one of those people. Although I don't think that I'm not affected by it. I'm not affected where it's affecting me physically, as far as I know. Some people just know, like they can feel it. But I can see in my genetics that I don't have that. But I also am very careful about where I have my phone or my Wi-Fi. I have protectors around my home. I put my phone in a little protector, right? I'm pretty careful as the best as I can with the Wi-Fi and the EMFs around me. And so these are things to think about for you and for your kiddos: the Wi-Fi, the tablets, the Bluetooth, the things in your ears, the earbuds, right? You've got those going, the Bluetooth, the EMFs going straight through the brain. This is not okay. We got kids, people that just walk around all day long with the Bluetooth in their head. Scares me. Don't know why it doesn't scare everybody. So other things that can be, that these things can affect, of course, is sleep, nervous system regulation, gut-brain communication. So our vagus nerve connects our gut and our brain, and if it's not functioning properly, if we stay in sympathetic, stay in fight or flight, then our vagus nerve is just going to shut down. Our nervous system is just completely unregulated. So this can happen to kids if their microbiome's out of whack, right? Because our microbiome speaks to our brain through the vagus nerve. So keeping that in mind, all of these things are intended to help with this type of nervous system regulation. So things that I think would be awesome is letting kids get dirty, right? Kids are supposed to get dirty. I love to get dirty. I love to go in the garden. My husband will say, if I'm gardening, do you want some gloves? I'm like, no, I don't want any gloves. I want the dirt on my hands. I want to feel the dirt. I want the microbes from the dirt. We have the biggest, most beautiful worms. Taylor Lowe, what is in our food? So my niece just went to Europe. She just texted me. So she just went to Europe and has had, here in the States, has had really significant GI issues. Right, I'm telling your story, Taylor. But she's, it's pretty bad, right? It's been really tough on her. So she goes over to Europe. They just spent, I think it was 8 days there, or 10 days, or whatever it was, and no GI issues. Why? They don't put the junk in their food that we do, right? Their bread is heirloom grain. It's not full of GMOs. It's not, it's made as bread was intended to be made, right? I mean, a lot of it's going to be sourdough. And their wine, right? They don't put pesticides and herbicides on their grapes like we do. Somebody said that to me the other day, which was a great point. If you're drinking European wine, you're not going to get all of that stuff. If you're drinking out of California, which California has great wine, right? But if you're drinking California wine, if it's not organic, it's probably loaded with pesticides and herbicides. So it's really frustrating, but these are the things to think about so we can start to manage the level of toxicity, right? We start to manage the burden that our body has to deal with. And I think that's kind of the key to all of it, right? So our bodies can only handle so much burden. It can handle some. It's how it's made. You know, God made us so beautifully resilient and made our body just, he created it so beautifully. It's there to protect us. It's there to keep us alive. But we have to be a partner with our body. More than anything else, we need to be a partner with our body. I need to talk about our sponsor, because I forget about talking about our sponsor, Miss Susan Drake. She is amazing. I love what she does. She's got a great company, Mountain Medical Concepts, is a great sponsor for us. She has resources for practitioners. These are specifically for practitioners. So if you're not a practitioner, but you're looking for peptides, you're looking for stem cells or exosomes, ask your provider for them, and then, you know, think about Susan Drake. If you are a provider, Mountain Medical Concepts, they've got really high-end, great, their peptides are awesome. You know, they've got this really cool food sensitivity test that is, you know, just, I don't know how new it is, but it's pretty new. You know, IV, specialty lab testing, all kinds of fun stuff. So she's got the I can't think of what it's called. Anyway, doesn't matter. But she has really great products for practitioners to help build a practice, to give these, you know, cutting edge therapies to patients for whether it's for you know, inflammatory processes, autoimmune conditions, anti-aging, which we're all going to age, but you know, it's nice to have a little bit of support there. So she is great at what she does. Reach out to her. Her QR code is there. Of course, her information there to chat with her is all on this on that page there. And then, of course, for me, my own little program that I have started doing, I wanted to make good precision wellness accessible to just about anyone. And this was sort of a little passion play, because it's been something that I've been working on for myself for quite a few years now, and then working with patients and clients for quite a few years on how I can really dive deep into body typing, genetic testing, lab testing, lifestyle factors, disease status, health status, all of those things, and put them together into something that's super personalized, but also then accessible and not out of control expensive. So that's what your Precision Wellness Blueprint is you fill out a small intake, and we take that information and we put it all together for you into a report. Right now we're doing it for $47, and you get 45 minutes with me, and we sit and discuss. And then we determine, do you want to take it deeper? Because that's where the fun stuff starts, right? So this goes really deep, right? I've done several of these now based on this small intake, and people are like, this is awesome, because it is awesome, the amount of information that we can have, and then start to create based around you and your needs. You know, what can we do in our lifestyle? What are the things that we can remove? What are the things that we can add in? What are the foods that we should and shouldn't eat? Based on who you are. What are your macros based on who you are and what we know? Now, we can always go deeper, and that's what I try to do with this. For those who do want to go deeper, we then can start to pile in, you know, data like genetics and other lab tests and all kinds of cool stuff. We can bring in, you know, continuous glucose monitor. We can bring in Lumen, and bring in these reports that help to really build out you, right? So that's what it is. It's the science of you. So it's been a lot of fun for me, because I've been doing this on myself for so long, and then to a degree with my patients and clients. But now it's all sort of balled up into how we can optimize, and that's what this is here. So feel free to text Blueprint. Again, it's $47, pretty cheap, not for long. Or you can go to the QR code. Happy to chat, would be a lot of fun. So let's see, what else do we have? I think that we probably hit on most of this stuff. We're probably at a good point to where we should stop. I think, at some point we'll talk about some swaps, but I think that it's important to bear in mind that reading the labels and understanding the labels, and that the chemicals in these foods are not good. Especially, if you're struggling, whether you're an adult or a child, if you're struggling with GI stuff, the brain fog, the pain, what is it, and how can we again take off some of these burdens so the body can function hopefully optimally? That's kind of the goal, right? And so things that you can bring in as far as foods are concerned, which are great for detox and for gut repair. Excuse me. Fiber. That was one of the things too that I knew I wasn't getting enough fiber. And it's not always easy to get 20, 30, 40 grams of fiber a day. That can be a lot. It can feel like a lot. There's some cultures who are getting like 90 or 100 grams of fiber a day, which sounds crazy. But that's something that I've been doing, is really trying to mix up my fibers. And some of it's in supplement form, it's in powders. I put it in my coffee and that kind of stuff. Like this morning, I've already had, I think, 12 grams of fiber because I put some, I think it was acacia fiber in my coffee. Pretty simple, right? A tablespoon is 6 grams of fiber. So I had 2 cups of coffee. It dissolves. You don't know it's there. It's a great way of sort of rounding out your microbiome. And it's feeding your bugs. These prebiotics feed your commensal bacteria, and you want to have it as diverse as possible. So other things, so you got chia, you've got flax, you've got berries, you've got leafy greens, all of those are great. You've got other prebiotics that are like onions, garlic, asparagus. Now, not everybody can handle these things, but if you can't, like if onions and garlic are a problem for you, then there's something going on, right? So there's sulfur containing foods. So is there a problem with your sulfation pathway in your liver detox? Maybe. So that's all stuff to think about. But it's not normal. So take it as a symptom. If you can't, if there are certain foods that bother you, there's a reason for it. It's not normal to be bothered by food. Postbiotics. So there are some pretty cool postbiotics out there. So postbiotics are things like short chain fatty acids, but there's a company called Thanabiotic that is a postbiotic. I'm not going to get into details of that right now because I have only just started taking it and experimenting with it, but it's a pretty interesting company, lots of cool data coming out. And so if you've heard of Thanabiotic, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, look them up. Really cool stuff. Let's see. And then lots of water. Water. Good, healthy, filtered water. I have distilled water. We're not going to get into if distilled water is best or not. In my research, it is. But we don't have the time to talk about it. I've talked about it in other episodes in the past, but distilled water is my choice and what I use at this point. But we've got to take in good, healthy water as much as we can, and make sure it's a good filter. Most filters are not good, and you're just wasting your money, and it's not taking out the stuff that we need to take out. So really important. There are some who just change their water and symptoms go away, right? So there's a lot of toxicants that are in our water, toxicants and parasites and microbes and stuff, right? So there was I can't remember who it was that said this, but if I can get it right, that the people who are at the water plants, their job is to make it drinkable. Our job is to make it clean. So drinkable doesn't always mean that it's the best quality. So let's think about that for a moment. So the other things that we'll probably hit on at some point, obviously breathing, right? Breathing and having good breaths. Hydrating, we just talked about. Movement, We got to get up and move. We got to sleep well. These are all important for us. It's important for our kids. If they are nutrient deficient, if they're eating the pesticides and the herbicides and the preservatives and the colorings, sleep is going to be difficult for them, for any of us. So we'll talk more about this. I think, again, this book came from Dr. Elise Song, pediatrician. It's called Healthy Kids, Happy Kids. Really good book, lots of information. This is only, I think this came out of maybe 2 or 3 chapters. So it's got great stuff in it. So grab that book. If you have questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out. I'm here to be a resource, here to be of service. Whatever I can do to help guide, help, optimize all of the things that we want in life so we can do the big things that we're put here to do. That's what I think is important for me, for anybody else. You can find us here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, streaming live on kuhsdenver.com. You can find me at Taste Live Nutrition and all of the places, all of the social media places, the website, that kind of thing. There is a assessment you can fill out on the website. I'll reach out to you. We can chat a little bit about it. You can text Blueprint and you'll get the link to fill out the intake and schedule a Blueprint session with me. And then lots of cool stuff coming. We're having a ton of fun with especially with this Blueprint, but with all of the other things that we've got coming down the pike. So let me know how I can be of service to you. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Love on your body. Partner with your body. Your body is here to keep you alive. So often people come at their body like it's a fight and it's a struggle. And I get when symptoms and conditions are super severe that it can feel that way. But if we can switch the mindset a little bit to love on our body, to give it grace, to give it what it needs, to learn what it needs, learn what it is that it's trying to tell us, and partner with it, then we have a lot better chance of really coming to that spot where there is ease and grace and health, for as long as we're here. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Bye.